Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, he dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heave is good. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining.
Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. The Grizzlies defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers in an excellent, exciting, tense, awesome game. The Grizzlies match their franchise record with an 11-game win streak, a record they obviously set last season. Some of the streaks get snapped here. Obviously, the 130-point game streak is snapped. Also, 120-point game streak snapped. But 11 straight wins, scoring 115 or more. No one's done that in the last 40 seasons. It was 1983, the Denver Nuggets. Alex English and Kiki Vandeweghe, I guess, are the known players for me from that team. The Grizzlies pull out the victory. And personally, and I think a lot of people are echoing this sentiment, the Grizzlies needed a game like this. They needed a measuring stick game. They needed to play some good teams. Listen, I like the blowouts as much as anybody. I love it when the Grizzlies win by a blowout. But beating the Suns backups by 20, beating the Hornets, the Magic, it's not making you any better. You have to play good teams. And this game started very slowly for the Grizzlies. They struggled. And it honestly felt like, to me, it was, if you're playing a video game, if you're playing NBA 2K or Madden, and you change the difficulty setting level, you go from rookie to all-pro or all-star or whatever they're called now. The Grizzlies had trouble adjusting. They weren't generating good looks. They weren't getting easy buckets in transition. When they went into the paint, guess what? The Cavaliers have a formidable front line. The Grizzlies are not used to that. That's what the Grizzlies do to other people. The Cavaliers have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in there, and it's not easy to get shots off. And then the Grizzlies adjusted. Then the Grizzlies had this awesome 20-0 run in the second quarter. But the Cavaliers fight back. The Cavaliers are awesome. Very good team. The Cavaliers have the second best defensive rating in the NBA, behind the Grizzlies, who have the best defensive rating in the NBA. The Cavaliers weren't fully healthy. I mean, the Cavaliers were missing Donovan Mitchell, who is their best player. They have an interesting roster, and they're obviously compared to the Grizzlies for having the best 25 and under core with Garland and Mobley and Allen and Mitchell. But when Donovan Mitchell isn't there, they also have another all-star guard in Darius Garland, Nashville's own. And Garland was awesome. Garland gets the Cavaliers team, back in it, gets them ahead. And then the second half, it felt like a playoff game. It was back and forth. It was tough. It was not easy to score. It was not easy to do anything. And I think playing these tight, close games, very important for the Grizzlies, for them to achieve their goals of winning multiple rounds in the playoffs. Even if they lost this game, I think we can sit back and say that's a good thing. They needed to test themselves. There are a lot of awesome takeaways. There are some takeaways that I guess we could, use a one-game sample size to draw a conclusion, which obviously isn't recommended, but it highlighted some things that we've been thinking about, so I think we can recognize that. But the huge positives from winning this game, beyond just, 11 straight rules. you keep pace with the Nuggets for the race for the 1 seed. You pull away. I mean, the Grizzlies and the Nuggets have pulled away. They are 5.5 games up on the 3 seed, which, by the way, right now is the Kings. The Kings are percentage points better than the Pelicans, but the Grizzlies are 5.5 games ahead of both those teams. But the things that I found most encouraging, that I loved the most, it's that Ja Morant in a slowed down, physical, brutal half-court game was great. This was not his best statistical game, but with the context of how tough it was in there and, how slight he is physically, for him still to be arguably the best player on the court, that's a great positive for me. He was getting his offense in the half court. He was still able to get in the lane. He made huge buckets down the stretch of this knockdown, drag-out fight. He got to those left-handed layups, did hesitation moves, got and ones going past the Cavaliers on the final go-ahead bucket by Steven Adams. Steven Adams, who says that's the first game winner of his career. I assume he means NBA career, but who knows? Ja gets to the rim, draws the help. He doesn't make the shot, but hey, that's the Grizzlies' bread and butter. Even when Ja misses, you have Steven Adams there to clean it up, just like Jonas Valanciunas before him. And so the Grizzlies get the win. We continue the win streak. And it was a grit and grind finish. Of that, there's no question. Jaren Jackson Jr. blocks that shot out of bounds with about 30 seconds left, and then the Grizzlies force a 5-second call. Then that leads to the Steven Adams putback for the game winner, the go-ahead shot. And then the final play is a walk-off. Dylan Brooks lock him up and block the shot, a walk-off blocked shot. It definitely was the grit and grind Grizzlies riding again for this victory. So beyond Ja Morant, that I found very, very encouraging. But we knew that. We know Ja Morant's good. We've seen him do it in the playoffs. Beyond that, your big three was great again. Desmond Bane kept it going. Desmond Bane had 25 points and made 5 3-pointers. His last 3 games, he scored 25, 28, and 25. Desmond Bane's last 6 games are just outrageous from 3. He's made 3 or more threes in 6 straight games, which ties his career best, something he's accomplished twice before. He's 1 short of the franchise record of 7 straight games set by, anybody know it? DeAnthony Melton. Melton set that record last year. But Bane is back to the form we saw him at the beginning of the year. We're still, I guess, concerned about his sesamoid. But Bane played awesome in this game. He now for this season averaging 21.8 points per game. His 3-point percentage is up to 43.3%. He's almost at 90% from the line. The Grizzlies are 19-5 when he plays. Just a great record. But you saw Ja, you saw Desmond, you saw Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. kept his multi-block streak going, 15 games in a row with 2 or more blocks. He had 4. I mean, they were big. Also got 2 steals again. Also, we spent so much energy talking about Jaren Jackson Jr.'s foul trouble, and we're trying to shift this narrative of everyone always talking about Jaren Jackson Jr. being in foul trouble. And, of course, he goes out, and in this game, he gets in foul trouble. He picked up 3 personal fouls in the second quarter. He got his 4th pretty early in the third quarter, so he actually lost a little bit of playing time. I mean, he ended up playing just about what you think he would play in this game. Played 28 and a half minutes. Because he played his full stint in the second quarter. Like the Grizzlies had that 20-0 run. They got ahead by 19. The Cavaliers stormed back basically once Jaren left the game in the second quarter with that 3rd foul. But he'd already played over 8 minutes in a row. That's when Jaren comes out no matter what, even if there isn't a foul trouble. He did lose playing time in the third quarter where his playing time was cut short a couple minutes because of those fouls. But, so Jaren gets in foul trouble. No big deal. I mean, bigs get in foul trouble. And yes, we can acknowledge Jaren Jackson Jr., he fouls a lot. We have an issue, obviously, of people pushing narratives like, oh, he shouldn't be Defensive Player of the Year because of his foul trouble, or he's not an all-star because of his foul trouble. That is bonkers. Will it be an issue in the playoffs if they want Jaren to play 35 to 38 minutes a game? Yeah, I think it will. That's where the foul trouble is a problem. But when we're talking about regular season awards, no, not a problem. I mean, the Jaren stats are all just bizarre. I say bizarre because I don't feel like I've seen things like them. Teams are still shooting 40% when he's on the court. The Grizzlies' field goal percentage defense is over 9 percentage points better when he's on the court. His rim protection numbers are insane. His just on-off numbers are great. He has the best net rating of any player in the entire NBA. He's second in per game plus minus, which I've said before, behind Nikola Jokic. He missed the first 14 games. He set out 2 other games, so he hasn't played in 16 of the Grizzlies games, and yet he's 8th in total plus minus if you just add up raw plus minus. He's 3rd in total blocks, and I don't really understand why you could not qualify for the blocks per game leaderboard and yet be 3rd in total blocks. Seems kind of odd. But obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s impact is there. I think when people are doing this narrative of the foul trouble, maybe it's helpful to them to just say, despite my belief he has constant foul trouble, he's second in the NBA in per game plus minus. Despite his foul trouble, he leads the NBA in block shots. Despite his foul trouble, the Grizzlies have the number 1 defense in the NBA. Despite his foul trouble, on and on and on. If that's useful to you, use that. But Jaren was awesome. Desmond was awesome. Ja Morant was awesome. They seem playoff proven. The dream of this Grizzlies season is, you have Ja, Jaren comes into his own. And then the Desmond Bane thing, let's not forget, for me, this is still kind of staggering and surprising that he's become all-star caliber. He's almost certainly not going to make the all-star game because he missed this huge chunk of the season. But he's absolutely at the level of an all-star. Nearly 22 points per game, 5 rebounds and 4 assists on his shooting splits. With his win percentage, that's all-star stuff. So Desmond Bane became an all-star this year. I didn't see that coming. I don't know who did. Maybe the front office did, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt or extra credit. But you have Ja, you have Jaren, you have Desmond Bane, you have a big 3, all-star level. In this game, none of it was too big for him. Second straight game, they each had excellent games. And so to get a win, even over a Cavaliers team that was missing Donovan Mitchell, like you say, neutral court, all right, Cavs probably win that. You're playing at Cleveland, they probably win that. But it's good enough right now. We'll take it. The Grizzlies are now 16-3 against the East. Just feasting. Of course, now the Grizzlies go on a road trip to the West. So 5 straight games against the Western Conference. It's been a little bit tougher. I mean, it's a gauntlet. We have the Friday night game at the Lakers, which of course is the Fast Break Breakfast Nashville meetup. We're having a watch party. It's going to be a Grizzlies watch party, giving away a ton of Grizzlies prizes at Noble's Beer Hall this Friday night as the Grizzlies go for that franchise record 12th straight win. Come to Noble's Beer Hall, hang out with me, hang out with John and Chuck from Fast Break Breakfast, hang out with other Grizzlies fans, and watch the Grizzlies Friday night, 9 p.m. at Noble's Beer Hall in Nashville. But you got to play the Lakers, you got to play the Kings, you got to play the Warriors. You got to come back to the Central Time Zone and play the Timberwolves on the road. Tough road trip. But the Grizzlies, again, need these. They need to get the reps. They haven't played a lot of clutch games. Most of their games have been decided by like 10 or more points. Of course, the streak kept going. The Grizzlies are now 31-0 when they get ahead by 10 points or more. I see everyone's talking about this now. I feel like this news just dropped. I mean, I didn't hear about it. I think John Schumann from NBA.com is the genesis of this statistic. I saw it on the national broadcast on MLK Day. And I guess now everyone's talking about it. It's a fun stat. It's a novelty stat. But it also shows that the Grizzlies are obviously quite good. to not have blown a 10-point lead this season. Of course, they've let those leads erase. We know that. But to still win every game they've been ahead by at least 10 is amazing. But because of that, they haven't played a lot of close games, so they haven't gotten the practice at this. They're 12-5 in clutch games, which, as you know, NBA.com defines as a game that's within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. That doesn't tell the entire story. That's just the elected cutoffs they've chosen. If you look at games where the Grizzlies have trailed, single possession games where the Grizzlies have trailed in the last 5 minutes. So games where the Grizzlies were down by 3 or fewer in the final 5 minutes, they're just 5-5. So I think that's a closer look at what their actual, record is in close games in my mind. A lot of these games were ones where they're up by 10 or 15, and then you get within 5 at the very end, to get within 3. It's not quite the same as performing in the clutch to me. That's just my own personal stance on the issue. But the Grizzlies need these types of games against good teams, against teams that are going to be in the postseason, and ones where you have to work on your half-court offense. You have to perform in a slow-down game. You're not just running up and down the court getting easy buckets. It's fun. It's very enjoyable. I mean, yes, I prefer that. As a fan, that's more fun to watch than the stress of this game. But I know to get the ultimate goal of a title, to make the Western Conference Finals, to win even probably the first round of the playoffs, you need more. And you got to be able to perform in a lot of different styles of games. Also, very encouraging to me, beyond Bane, Morant, and Jaren Jackson Jr., your other starters were good. I mean, Dillon Brooks was erratic. He missed all 5 of his three-pointers. But in the fourth quarter, the first 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, and this game is just getting tight, and it looks too big for some guys. More on that in a second. I'm watching this thinking, this game needs Dillon Brooks. We need Dillon Brooks to come in and do his thing. These moments are not too big for Dillon, and Dillon had an excellent final stint, not just the game-winning block. He was excellent for the Grizzlies, providing some offense, strong drives to the basket, getting to his mid-range jumper. Dillon was big down the stretch. Steven Adams had a double-double, 13 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of them on the offensive end, 4 assists. The Grizzlies starting lineup is elite. We knew that coming into the year, and it's gotten even better than I dreamed because of Desmond Bane's improvements and Jaren Jackson Jr. blossoming into what he's become this season. Now, I do think, the single game conclusion I alluded to earlier, I think something you can take away from this game, which maybe isn't fair, but in that second half when things were tight, the moment looked too big for some guys. Tyus Jones was not very good. Only 1 out of 6. Wasn't getting the best looks and seemed hurried on his three-pointers. Zaire Williams, his streak of 10 straight games made three-pointer, that ended. Zaire Williams did not look like he belonged in this clash. John Conchar did not look like he belonged. If you're watching the game and you see, one team has, Garland and Mobley and Allen and Karis LeVert, and then we have Morant and Bane and Jackson and Brooks and Adams. There were moments where I'm like, all right, it doesn't feel like Conchar belongs right here. The things that Conchar does, it does well. And, of course, he posted a great plus-minus. He was out there for, I believe, the entire 20-0 run. But when things got tight, when the moment got big, it's can we depend on this guy? I don't know. Can we depend on Tyus Jones? I don't even know. I mean, Tyus Jones made a couple of big threes in the playoffs last year. And because of that, basically no one remembers his struggles. They were also in the playoffs last year, also in the playoffs the previous year. Because of that goes, I guess, to all the trade questions. And we can talk about that now. Why not? Actually, let's do a break. And then there's a tease. We'll talk about some Danny Green trades or great trades for the Grizzlies, and then talk about some of the other performances from this game. Send Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond, Bane, and all your Memphis Grizzlies to the 2023 NBA All-Star Game in Utah this February. You can vote daily through January 21st at NBA.com or via the NBA app. Do your part, vote today, and send your favorite Grizz to the All-Star Game. All right, obviously with the Grizzlies playing so well, winning 11 straight games, being at the top of the Western Conference, you have to start thinking, are we good enough? This is great, but are we good enough to win a title? I don't know the answer. I do think with this roster as is, there's a world where they could win the title. They're playing well. They stay healthy. They are good enough, I think, to beat every team in the NBA right now in a 7-game series. Can you do that 4 straight times, which is what it takes to win a title? Unlikely, but possible. So obviously with the trade deadline approaching, we start thinking, all right, well, what can we trade to get? And most people identified this team could use more shooting. Like the Grizzlies won against the Cavaliers despite getting outshot. Cavaliers made 16 three-pointers. Isaac Okoro was on fire. So the Grizzlies lost the three-point battle. Before this game, they were 1-9 when their opponent made 16 or more three-pointers. So the Grizzlies win despite, the Cavs making a lot of three-pointers. So you look at the roster, you're like, all right, could probably use some more wing depth. Could probably use a guy better than Conchar, better than Zaire, better than Roddy, to help us in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to be able to upgrade the starting lineup. The starting lineup is great. Trading for a player who's better than your 2 weakest links, which is Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams, pretty hard to do. Those guys are very good and help the team a lot. I know we identify OG Anunoby, and I think that's a great one, but I don't think it's likely. I'm not going to spend a lot of energy right now talking about OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam trades. Maybe in another episode. But we identify, all right, so let's upgrade the bench. And, you want a shooter, you want a wing. And that's why everyone is talking about, like, hey, let's trade for Malik Beasley. Let's trade for Jordan Clarkson. Let's go after, so-and-so. And to do that, of course, you have to match the salary. And that's why everyone mentions Danny Green. Now, let's just focus on this. I don't think the Grizzlies are trading Danny Green for a backup. Just period. So, I don't think they're going to trade for Malik Beasley. I don't think they're going to trade for Jordan Clarkson. I don't think they're going to trade for Will Barton or, anybody. Josh Richardson, who I've highlighted. And here's why. Here's why I think that. It's not necessarily that I wouldn't do it, but I think we can take what we've learned about this front office from seeing what they've done over the past few seasons and then take what we've just observed this season with Danny Green's actions. Like a couple of things. One, Danny Green's been at every game. He's going to Memphis Hustle games. They've put him on the broadcasts to comment on the games. He's gone on Grind City media shows, not mine yet, but, maybe in the future. Danny Green's been around, been involved. They're not going to just dump him, I don't think. Also, it sounds like he can play basketball. He's practicing 5-on-5 right now. So, this is an involved guy with the team right now. Great locker room guy. One of the few veterans, has championship pedigree, is healthy enough to be practicing, which means he's probably going to play soon. You're not trading him and one of those beautiful, precious, unformed future first-round picks for Malik Beasley. You're not doing it. It doesn't make sense. When we talk about what the Grizzlies need, what does this team need? We need maybe another wing defender. Maybe a guy who can guard the 2, 3, or 4, who can be a 3-and-D player, ideally with the championship experience, playoff pedigree. That's Danny Green. Danny Green, if healthy, is probably more useful than all these players we're talking about. Also, I think you have to look at how we value Danny Green. The DeAnthony Melton trade only makes sense if they value Danny Green. Like David Roddy plus hopefully Danny Green's healthy come the playoffs, come March, come April. That's how the Melton trade makes sense. Like the Melton trade's worked out great for the Sixers. They've moved Tyrese Maxey into a sixth man role. So like that trade only makes sense if you value Danny Green as a player. I know this has been repeated a lot, like this narrative I keep seeing repeated. It doesn't make a ton of sense. They're like, oh, well, one part of the Melton trade was you get Danny Green who can be matching salary in a trade. That doesn't make sense. You know who else is matching salary in a trade who probably had more trade value? D'Anthony Melton. Also, the narrative of like the Grizzlies, dumped Melton, traded Melton for Roddy, and this matching salary is because they gave up on him for his playoff failures. And that's something that people have made up as an excuse for the deal. Not that Melton struggled to shoot in the playoffs, which he obviously did, but they didn't give up on him. The last playoff series he played for the Grizzlies, that's the most he played at any playoff series. Like, did they lose faith that he'll never be good enough? I don't know. He was good in Game 6 against the Warriors. He was massive in the Game 2 win over the Warriors. Like, you're not going to trade a 23-year-old because of his playoff failures, I don't think, when the most recent playoff series he played in was his best one. Like, you're not going to bring in a rookie and say, hey, this rookie, we think he'll be better in the playoffs because that 23-year-old who has 3 playoff series experience under his belt and got better in the last one, this new guy who's never been in the playoffs will probably do better. No one thinks that. So the Melton trade only makes sense if I think the team valued Danny Green. I think it's more likely Danny Green ends up working in the Grizzlies front office in the next few seasons than it is he's traded right now at the deadline. Like, let's go through some of these names real quick. All right, Malik Beasley. You say Malik Beasley, all right, he's a great shooter, volume shooter. He can kind of guard the 3. He's like a 2-3. His big thing is he has a team option for next year, so the Grizzlies could keep him. It's not a rental. A lot of these trades are rentals. Like Gary Trent Jr. is going to opt out. Like, I don't think Malik Beasley moves the needle that much. And also, if they wanted Malik Beasley, they could have traded for him last year. They could have traded Melton for Malik Beasley if you want Malik Beasley. They could have traded for Beasley actually any of the last 3 years, 2.5 years. I can't remember my timelines. He's been available. Also, he's represented by Clutch. I don't think that's someone the Grizzlies have ever worked with. Also, the story on Beasley has always been he prefers to be on the West Coast and he wants to get back to LA eventually. He also has had legal issues. He's been in TMZ for his relationship stuff. Not that those are necessarily things that we should hold against him, but if you look at the track record of what the Grizzlies front office has done, they normally haven't gone after stuff like that. So I don't think the Beasley's very likely. Also, you look at the asking price. They're not trading Danny Green and a pick to make it work. Same thing for Jordan Clarkson. What the Jazz want from Jordan Clarkson, by the way, the Jazz are in the playoff race. What the Jazz want for Jordan Clarkson is not what the Grizzlies are prepared to pay. And also, if Danny Green's healthy, he is more valuable to your team than either of these guys. I like to point out this fact that Danny Green's won 71% of all the games he's played in. He's one of the best winning percentages in NBA history. How good is his winning percentage? If he was on the Grizzlies' 56-win team last year, that would have hurt his win percentage. He wins 71% of his games. The Grizzlies last year won 68% of their games. So I think Danny Green's the ideal piece for this team. I also don't think they're giving up on multiple players. They're like, oh, Danny Green plus Tillman and LaRavia. No. Are you not watching this front office work over the past few seasons? They value their guys. I mean, I make this mistake. I would have traded Desmond Bane for Bradley Beal 2 years ago. Would have been wrong. Probably would have been a terrible trade. I mean, maybe the Grizzlies would have won a title 2 years ago, but who knows? I joke. Like, they held on to Aldama. Aldama was awesome. against the Cavaliers. Taylor Jenkins said it was the best game he's played as a Grizzly. Okay, I can get behind that. He made 4 3-pointers, was 6 of 8 from the field. The one bench guy who seemed like it wasn't too big for him. Aldama was awesome. But this Grizzlies front office values their picks, values their ability to draft guys and develop guys. And so because of that, a lot of these rentals, a lot of these gunners, a lot of these players don't make a ton of sense. Also, there's no guarantee any of these guys are any better than what you've had before. I know I'm personally, the most obsessed Melton person in the world. But, there's no guarantee Josh Richardson or Doug McDermott, guys I've highlighted, if Danny Green can't play, as I get a little bit more scattered. If Danny Green already is practicing 5-on-5 and they see him practicing and say, oh, he's not close. Maybe he can't help. My thing with Danny Green trades I've always pitched was if you don't think Danny Green is coming back, then you call up the Spurs and say, can we get Josh Richardson? Can we get Doug McDermott? I like both those guys. I like their fit on the Grizzlies off the bench. But also, we don't know they will be any better than what we already have. Each year Josh Richardson has gone to the playoffs, he shot under 40% in those playoffs. Doug McDermott has never won a playoff series. He's 31% from 3 in the playoffs. The playoffs are different. Also, the playoffs are always small sample sizes. You're like, hey, this guy's bad in the playoffs. Well, how many games did he play? 10? How many minutes did he get? Oh, not that many. So it's hard to know. But is Malik Beasley a proven playoff guy? He's had some moments. He had some moments on the Nuggets. Can Malik Beasley swing one game for you? Possibly. But I still don't think you're trading a first-round pick to do that. The Bojan Bogdanovic talk. I like Bojan. Talked about him a lot on this show. Pure offense. The Grizzlies don't have the salaries to make it work. I don't think they're packaging Danny Green plus Tyus Jones. I pitched that in the offseason. I've watched this year now. I think they value all these players too much. And I think the Grizzlies are close enough right now that they don't think that if it's a short-term boost, say maybe adding Gary Trent Jr. makes you slightly better this year. But that to me is still debatable. It's not worth giving up on adding first-round picks to this team. They are sitting with the second best record in the NBA, or third best, for the second straight year doing what they do, depending on internal growth and, by the way, superstar play from Ja Morant and all-star level play from Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane and excellent elite role player stuff from Steven Adams and Dylan Brooks. They're not trading Dylan Brooks. They're not trading Steven Adams, which is why I think most people who cover the Grizzlies fall back to there's probably no deal here. I don't necessarily think there needs to be a deal. I think you keep your eyes and ears open, but I haven't seen any of these things where I'm like, oh yeah, we should definitely do that. Anunoby's the one I always come back to because he's very, very good. But then you start thinking, well, who's our closing 5? Does Anunoby, he's over Dylan? Is Steven Adams the one getting bumped out? Steven Adams' defense has been great this year. And he also is such a facilitator for the Grizzlies offense. And he is such an important factor for the Grizzlies with that offensive rebounding. When Ja gets to the bucket and draws every defender and every shot blocker and gets it high up on the glass and it doesn't go in, are you going to depend on a front line of Jaren and OG Anunoby and Dylan Brooks to get that offensive rebound? I wouldn't, because it's not as good. Those three, not as good as one Steven Adams. So I think those are all important things to consider. It's why I haven't been too gung-ho on doing a big trade episode. I know, we still got 3 weeks before the trade deadline, so at one point I'll probably get so excited I'll have to pitch some fake trades. But I'm not seeing it right now, and especially not on the heels of the Grizzlies winning 11 straight and beating a very tough, a very rugged Cavaliers team. But if I were motivated to make a trade, one thing I would point to is in this game, Tyus Jones, Zaire Williams, John Conchar did not seem awesome. did not seem like they were up to par with what else was going on in the game. Zaire, by the way, some people have thought in the previous game maybe he collected a loose ball. Not according to NBA.com. The NBA stats page still has Zaire with 0 loose balls collected this season, has played over 300 minutes. Oh, let's go back to Jaren, by the way, as we wrap this show up. Sean Coleman was the first person I saw to point this out, so I'll give him credit. Jaren is the first player in NBA history with 10 straight games with a made 3 and multiple blocks. Sean also pointed out that in the Grizzlies' first 10 games of this win streak, they were first in the league in opponent three-point percentage allowed, which for me falls under the, all right, we're getting some lucky breaks. We're also playing some bad teams and bad shooters. My favorite phrase, bad shooting luck or bad shooter shooting. It was probably bad shooter shooting. But that's, again, why I liked this Cavaliers game. I mean, yeah, Isaac Okoro had an outlier shooting game, but also, I mean, let's be real. Santi Aldama had an outlier shooting game. Those might negate each other. But the Grizzlies scratching, clawing out this win, despite the Cavs, hitting those threes, again, makes me pretty excited, and I like where the Grizzlies are at right now, obviously. Anyways, please come out to Noble's Beer Hall on Friday night in Nashville. Friday night, 9 p.m., the Grizzlies go for 12 straight wins. It's going to be a great time. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel. Might as well subscribe to the Fast Break Breakfast YouTube channel while you're there. Tell others about the show. Appreciate you listening. Have a great Thursday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.